Welcome back to the Unscripted podcast. It's me and Kieran today. Normally it's three of us, but one of us is absent again.
Not committed.
Not committed to the cause. You know, this big time footballer. Yeah, you know what he's like.
Other priorities.
Other priorities. He's not there. He's not with the cause. He thinks he's the model of the group. You know.
Yeah.
But I don't know, today we're just going to talk about whatever really and just sort of go with the flow. Don't know, to start, I kind of want to talk about your sort of recent trip to America with the filming. I thought it was quite interesting and sort of an insight into that.
I don't know how much I can say.
Well, just say what it was with the uni and stuff, I think.
Yeah, well, no, it was a trip to the US for a feature film. With Netflix. Pretty cool cast and crew on it. Amazing crew. Really cool experience just to kind of see, I guess, the other world as well. Not just the kind of the scale of filming, but also the US. I've first time been there. Totally different culture, different country, different world. It's everything's just kind of so different. But no, I mean, a really good experience. Just seeing how everyone operates on such a kind of bigger budget.
That was one of the things I was going to ask. It's like the budget wise and sort of the sets they use. It's just I mean, for any film student, it's a kind of insight into what you could go down and what you could be involved in. That's good as well that the uni's providing that as well.
I mean, hopefully not once in a lifetime opportunity, but you never know with these things. But just seeing, I guess, that process of how they make a big budget movie, and especially with VFX, seeing how all that works with the tennis balls and the blue screen, and actors being replaced and stuff. It's quite interesting. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and then I think they were shooting already for 7 months or something by the time I went over, and then they had another kind of month or so after that. And then it's another year after that before the film comes out, so it's such a lengthy process from beginning to end.
I don't think people realise as well how long these films actually film for. It's like it could be 7 months, it could be 2 years, it could be
absolutely
a month or two if that. I don't know, but like.
And then on the war end, films can be shot in 28 days or less. It really varies, and I guess it's down to budget and the director's preferences as well and stuff. Of just what's achievable within the budget.
Yeah. So obviously with that, I'm going to lead on to you went to St Andrews as well and sort of that kind of film festival.
Yeah, well, the thing about the film industry is contacts and who you know and just kind of showing face at events and stuff. So St Andrews have got a new festival, Sands Film Festival. I think this is the second year it's been running, so it's still fairly new. Still kind of getting to grips with itself, but it was really interesting actually just hearing a variety of talks from people in the industry. Talks about culture and accessibility and discrimination and how to make the industry more accessible for all walks of life, all types of people. Which is such an important thing. So it's really good to hear people who are kind of at the forefront of the fight and hear kind of from them what they are doing, but then also how we as kind of low budget filmmakers can also implement the same ideas and concepts and to make sure that we're also being accessible. So that was a really good talk. And then being able to see Stanley Tucci was great. He's such a great person. He's really funny, so well dressed.
He's always got a suit on and sort of clean,
So his film was great. Being able to see that, and Joe Russo as well was great. So no, it was good. It was cool. It was a good wee event. Actually, quite small and kind of contained, but that might branch out next year. It's definitely, you can see it's on a certain trajectory, and it's backed by Joe Russo as well. So I'm sure
money will be pumped.
Yeah, well, the funding will be there, and they'll kind of continue to get better.
Yeah, on sort of filming within Scotland, I know we touched on it off camera, it's that sort of kind of hopefully the inclusion of like a sort of filming set or filming studios in Scotland. I think that would be quite a good idea, especially with kind of directors like Russo sort of kind of openly declaring this sort of love for Scotland. And
Well, there's a lot of productions coming over now. And we've seen that in the last couple of years where it's constantly expanding, and these kind of big budget movies are coming over because it's a lot cheaper than London or elsewhere. And we've got the studios in Cumbernauld, but to have somewhere that's bigger and it's a proper space that where they can build sets, I think if that's the next step. If they can have a space where they can build the sets, you'll have these feature films coming over to use Glasgow as the location, but then they'll stay because they can build the sets here.
yeah,
And I mean, that's good for the city, and it's good for the finances, and it's good for Scotland as well.
yeah, I think on the sort of kind of, I think also, even I know with the Batman film that got filmed, well, 2 Batman films that got filmed, the other one that got cancelled. I mean, even when that was getting filmed, it was quite a spectacle, and shutting down George Square with all the snow and stuff, and building that sort of kind of bridge archway within George Square. I think things like that are actually kind of good. And also, I mean, it does help the council and the government with funding and money as well. And I don't know, I think, like you said, I think if a studio did come to Scotland, it would benefit Glasgow and Edinburgh really, because you'll have Hollywood.
Well, they're building one in Edinburgh just now.
Yeah.
So I can't remember quite the scale of that, but that'll definitely be beneficial as well.
Yeah.
So it's on the up. It's kind of good to see people who are part of that industry. But then I guess the flip side as well, it's like, and actually this might benefit in the end if there was a proper studio built, but the constant kind of road closures, especially for prolonged periods of time, can be quite annoying for residents, which is understandable. So if there was a kind of studio space, then that might help with that. There's not as many road closures and kind of access ways being blocked off.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely an interesting time for Scottish filmmaking, and I mean, there's more and more sort of people who are Scottish that are quite high up, and obviously Greg Fraser with his cinematography and the Batman and other films like Dune and stuff. I think it's quite promising for Scotland as well in that regard. And I definitely think it's something that the Scottish government should capitalise on in terms of funding and things like that, because it's a real risk as well with the UK government sort of cutting of arts funds and things like that as well. So maybe it does take private investors or like Russo or someone like that to keep it going.
I think so. 'Cause it's a big investment. It's millions of pounds worth of infrastructure just to kind of keep it maintained as well. So it's a lot of money, but you'd hope then that you then get that money back in the long run. It's also just finding, I guess, the space for it.
Yeah.
Where's these big warehouses going to be made? Where's the space for it? So that's another thing. Kind of lots of factors, but I think if they could get something like that, it would really help kind of elevate Scotland in the industry.
Yeah. I think moving on to sort of, but you sort of spoke about kind of the cultural aspect and sort of diversity and things like that. I think sort of production companies like A24, for example, are really good for that in regards to the kind of, I don't know, different sort of having different faces that kind of take lead roles and the way, and that them becoming sort of mainstream as well, and different accents, and sort of making the viewers across the world sort of comfortable with that, not just your sort of stereotypical Hollywood all-American sort of films. I mean, I know Everything Everywhere All at Once got loads of awards and stuff, and that was good, obviously, and obviously some people like it, some people hate it, but I think that as well is a sign of kind of maybe the industry's changing a bit. And I think films like obviously Parasite and stuff with Bong Joon-ho, and he's kind of paved the way for that kind of Asian sort of.
Yeah, I think with him especially, he was already big.
Yeah.
I think people forget that he was already well established over there, and it was more just then with Parasite that he came really to the forefront in terms of American culture. But it's good to see as well he's not aiming for that, like, I think that's the thing, is like there's the perception that he's a kind of up and coming director, and like that was his greatest hit, but he was already established, already had phenomenal films. I think streaming's helped with that, to help diversify audiences, because with theatrical releases, you know, it's like released here and then it's released there and there and there. But it's kind of hard, especially with studios. They're looking for guaranteed hits with, you know, guaranteed blockbuster actors.
Yeah.
So there's not as much diversity. But I think with streaming, it's helping to get more diversity because you can target all these different places simultaneously. I mean, look at Squid Game.
Yeah,
It's like massive all over the world.
Mm.
And yeah, I guess like the Indian market as well, like that's growing, and there's a lot of Bollywood actors who are, you know, are famous in their own right over there. And with streaming, we're now seeing those people be able to be in blockbuster movies and be cast. When, you know, if it was traditional studio theatrical releases, then I don't think you would see that type of casting. So I think that's where streaming's kind of helped the industry a bit, and being able to diversify and tell a wide variety of stories from lots of different people. And because of so many studios as well, so many streaming services rather, the hope is that would, with so many options, then it gives more people the platform to tell stories. And whether or not that actually translates is a different question.
I was sort of speaking to my dad about this the other day. It was kind of like that whole kind of thing with streaming versus sort of, and you as well yesterday about the streaming versus theatre releases.
Yeah.
So obviously with streaming, it's like we're all guilty of sort of kind of binging programs or movies. We don't really watch them properly. We sort of watch them on our phones, or we watch them and then we don't watch them all at once. We sort of watch 20 minutes, come back to it a week later and be like, do you think streaming ruins the sort of kind of theatrical sort of element of going to the cinema, or do you think certain films should just kind of stay, we're only doing movie, that's it?
Some films are suited to theatrical. I don't think it's streaming services so much as it was COVID, because theatrical was already kind of on the downer before COVID, and I think COVID was the kind of final nail in the coffin. I seen a really interesting TikTok yesterday about this, and it was about the idea that back in the day when theatrical was kind of at its peak and there was all these kind of great movies coming out, that I guess before online booking, really, you turned up to the theatres and it was more like, is there any tickets left for this screening? It wasn't about what seat you were going to choose. Whereas with online booking, it's, I want the middle row, or the middle row's taken, I'm not going then. You know, you want the best seats and you get to choose, whereas before you never had that option. So it was more about, I want to go see this movie, is there any tickets left? And you didn't care where the seats were as long as you were in the theatre. So that's an interesting thought, that in a way that's kind of helped kill things, because people are, you know, they have their favourite spots now, and if their seats aren't really available, they might be kind of reluctant to go. And I think with streaming, I don't think it's killed theatrical, because some stuff is suited to streaming, some is theatrical, but I think with theatrical now, it's just guaranteed hits. You know, 3 or 4 films a year which are just blockbuster movies.
All blow up,
Yeah, because the studios want that guaranteed hit so they get their money back, especially with so much money being pumped into the movie in the first place. So it's a different market, I suppose.
Also, I feel like with theatricals you can sort of go on that sort of world tour and sort of make it really big and sort of amazing. And obviously with directors like Christopher Nolan and stuff, he's obviously going to want to have it shot on an IMAX camera in the big screen, able to be on 3D.
Yeah, and you'll lose that with streaming. You'll lose that when it's on a phone and it's an aeroplane seat, you know. And so, there's always going to be a place for that kind of movie and that kind of spectacle, and that's why you go to the theatres for that. And you're right about with streaming, you don't get that 7 days of press that you get with theatrical, where you're touring the world and you're going like, right, hit this market, hit this market, hit this market. With streaming, it's just dropped into the kind of abyss, and that's it. It's out of your hands at that point. It's the kind of algorithm, it's Netflix, Prime, it's whatever. So you don't get that opportunity to have the kind of build up.
I think some streaming services now do that whole thing. It's like 1 episode a week, and they sort of limit people. I think that's a better way of doing it, especially if it's a series that needs a bit of build up, and like if you just watch it all at once, you don't really get the whole story. I know Amazon do it quite a bit. They do that whole kind of 1 a week thing, They do it with the like shows like The Boys and
Yeah.
things like that, and other stuff I've watched on there.
I think that's the way to go as well, because with all shows on the telly and stuff, when I say old, it just means before streaming. They came out every week, and it was an event. You sat down with your family at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and you watched Line of Duty or whatever it was. Whereas with Netflix, or these other streaming services, it's just they're all dropped at once, and then you go binge the whole season in a night, and then you lose that rewatchability, because it takes a lot out of you just streaming and binge watching these TV shows, and then once you've done that, you're not really going to go back and watch it again. You see the kind of cult classics like Friends and stuff being uploaded, and that's fair enough, but that's a kind of different thing.
I don't mind that. I don't mind
ones.
that. Yeah, especially with older stuff. It's just like, I think it's just that whole kind of thing you want to just go back, and if it's like a comfort show, it's like for me, The Office, I just sort of kind of watch it if it's in the background, and I don't mind that. But if it's like a new film, or I think cinema, like touching back, will never be lost, because I think people of our generation especially, and older generations, kind of really love going to the cinema. If it's like a big movie or a big deal, I think, like you said, they'll stay, but I think it's just maybe more indie sort of independent films that would be on the cinema normally won't be, and they'll just sort of be released on, I don't know, Mubi or Amazon, or
you're more guaranteed to make some money back, or for more people to see it on streaming services. That, especially for these smaller movies, but the big blockbusters, that's always going to be theatrical, because it's that whole thing as well. It's like the fear of missing out. You want to be part of the conversation in school. You want to understand that meme that's going across Twitter about the latest DC or Marvel movie. And so with theatrical, you get that chance to kind of build up to this big release, and then you get the kind of midnight screenings on release day, and 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, but it becomes a whole part of like the kind of culture. And in that case, then it's a guaranteed hit, and it means you can hit millions of people. But for these kind of small budget or small to mid budget films, you're not really guaranteed to be a success. But I think if you are a success, then it will do really well, but it's just you don't have that guarantee anymore.
It's quite interesting with like social media now, that like there's films that have been released for like 5-6 years, and then they're not popular at the time, but then like 6 years later, due to like just the algorithm and people sort of the build up on like things like TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that, they become popular, and then there's been like films that get re-releases in cinema and stuff because they've picked up a bit of noise, or like they're suddenly at the front of marketing in the Netflix or Amazon because they know that it's picked up. So I think that's quite interesting as well.
And I think that's always been the case as well, throughout film's history. There's so many cult classics that flopped at the time, and then it's just over time
they've got better.
I think as well it kind of started when movies started being shown on the telly all the time, and it doesn't necessarily mean it was a good movie, but it's just because it was always shown on the telly at Christmas time or whenever, people always seen it, always watched it, and so it was always kind of ingrained in a memory, like I remember this as being like a really good movie, or just the spectacle of it, of sitting down with family and watching this kind of cult classic. So I think that's kind of where it's all came about. It's interesting.
On sort of kind of, this is sort of a segue, it's a good one, and social media and stuff. Obviously TikTok now is a sort of kind of mainstay in the society we kind of live in now, and it's just there, but obviously it's a new form of medium that we kind of are all sort of hooked to now. Do you think, obviously you want to discuss the positives first before the negatives? I mean, obviously it's very good for film students like yourself, sort of putting content out there or seeing content, like, and also kind of having a community as well. I know there's obviously a lot of filmmakers on there, or up and coming ones that all kind of do different things and stuff like that. Do you think it's like a good thing for that, or do you think it's, I don't know?
I mean, it definitely has its positives. It is good, it is funny, it's addicting, it's very easy to get caught up in it and spend hours on it, but I guess that's where you just have to have a bit of self-control as well, and just limit yourself, but that's not easy. But no, it is good. It's a good resource for learning and developing, and you're seeing a lot more now in the film industry. you know, commercials, especially commercials, advertisements, these sorts of things. When you're filming it now, the requirement as well is that it needs to be croppable or it needs to be framed up for social media release as well. So that's another dynamic to things where you're so used to this kind of vertical aspect ratio, but then now you need to also have that, or rather horizontal aspect ratio, and then now you need to have the vertical aspect ratio to fit mobile phones. So it's a different way of working, and I think that will also then start, you'll see a kind of ripple effect where people's choice of filmmaking will differ because they're then having to figure out a way to accommodate these two different ways of marketing. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And we're seeing as well with like the Blackmagic cameras now. They've just released an update that allows for kind of proper vertical filmmaking, and you know, and that kind of keeps them relevant because there's plenty of other people that are doing it. But I think, especially where Blackmagic sits with the kind of pocket 6Ks and that sort of thing, they're geared more towards small entry-level filmmakers, and that's the perfect sort of camera now, I guess, for making TikTok content. So yeah, it's interesting to see these kind of bigger companies in the industry now starting to shift, or not shift focus, but at least provide the tools to be able to then do things like TikTok properly.
It's obviously I like TikTok and stuff like that, but I think it's concerning for especially the younger generation, like I don't know, like your sister, or like, I mean, maybe slightly older, and that's whole kind of, there's obviously a lot of studies going into it about kind of their attention span, and obviously we know how it affects our attention span because there's people who just don't bother even like watching, like a 5-minute or 10-minute clip is seen as too long now, which like 10 years ago was like short. So like that obviously ties into what we're talking about like the kind of film industry, and like, well, actually people in 10 years time of that generation behind us go and sit for 2 hours and sort of watch a movie, because you even see it now. It's just like people in the cinema, you can see them itching or like eating food, or they get up and go to the toilet like twice because they can't sit still. So I think things like TikTok do actually kind of affect that, and it's quite concerning, but also kind of interesting how our generation sort of is impacted by it, and younger generations as well.
It's the rise of social media. I think we have kind of grown up at a great time where we still went outside and played, and we still ran about and didn't have access to phones, you know, until
if you're like 12.
Like, so
my first phone was like a one, so you'd like press A, you'd have to press it like 3 times to get to C, and then like 3 times to get to E. And
another BlackBerry, I think that was my first one. Classic BBM and all that. Screen muncher to screenshot. Those were the days. I think that's the kind of perfect time to have grown up, because we kind of we're getting the benefits of technology and social media and all that, but we also still went outside and played and ran about and rolled about in dirt, and you know.
You just don't see that anymore.
You don't see that anymore. And times have changed, for better or for worse. But I think you see it on YouTube as well. You know, these 10-minute films or 10-minute videos rather, or less. Or people trying to hit the 10 minutes so they can then add in an advertisement as well. It's all kind of monetized, and it's all just to make money. It's an interesting thing.
It's also interesting with things like podcast format. It's like mainly people over the age of 21 that kind of watch podcasts. So it's quite, and then it was like once you go below 21 and under, like the retention span on like YouTube creators, they're all like making like 5-10 minute videos, or like they've really compressed what they do, or like they split it up with like 5 minutes and then like a big long ad break in the middle and then 5 minutes, and it's just it's interesting to see the shift.
Do you know about the millennial pause?
Yes, I
do.
You
heard about that? Yeah, that's quite interesting.
Do you want to explain it to people?
So I think it's basically millennials, or people of a certain generation, when they're recording something, or a video, a podcast, whatever it may be, they'll press record and then they'll pause and they'll wait and then they'll go. Whereas people of kind of our generation and more, as soon as we hit record, we just start talking. There's no kind of pause there. It's such a funny thing. It probably comes from just, I guess, as technology was developing, you know, it wasn't as reliable, so you kind of wanted to wait for confirmation that it was definitely recording. Whereas now with our generation, we just trust that.
Yeah, we just think,
You
yeah,
know,
okay,
we
it's
just trust
working.
that as soon as we hit it, it's working.
Yeah.
It's snappy, it's fast, it's reliable.
I mean, it's also interesting, kind of like speaking to younger family members of mine, and it's just like how sort of kind of clued in they are on things that at that age I was like, why do you know about that, or like why?
Yeah.
That's the danger as well. It's like they're getting exposed to so much content and so many things on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and it's you can't control it as a parent, and I think that's concerning as well. Obviously, you think you can with parental controls and 18 plus stuff, and
but even then, it seeps through in schools and classrooms and all that sort of thing as well. It's so easy to just kind of navigate all these things now. But yeah, no, it's crazy. It's like 4-year-olds who can work a fully functioning phone now, and you see them on the iPad just tapping away and doing this and that, and it's
you see it in like restaurants or like anywhere, and you just see a kid on his iPad flicking through like some 25-year-old who's working through their emails or something. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm just like, I'm so confused.
It's that, and it's the overstimulation as well.
Yeah.
Even with us, like sitting down eating dinner, and you need to have you don't eat your dinner until you've got a good YouTube video on, that sort of thing. It's like you need that background noise, you need something to kind of focus on. You know, Subway suffers. It's like
I genuinely think
it's a great thing.
I think COVID has actually just completely shifted our sort of cognitive approach to things in our brains, and I think that time period is we were going down this path, and it's just slightly altered to the right, and I think it's accelerated the sort of want for social media to become even bigger, but also kind of things like AI technology and ChatGPT and things like that appearing, and it's gonna, all social media and technology is gonna make so many things that humans do obsolete, and it's just gonna be a massive switch within the workforce. You're gonna have humans working for AIs. Yeah, and that's just a crazy concept that people can't comprehend.
I seen a clip of a robot that was seemed like a fully functioning robot, but it has AI, and it was doing basically work, and then it just deems it that this work, like repetitive action of grabbing boxes and bringing them off, and just kills itself basically. Like, I mean, I think that's quite telling actually. About the state of the world.
To what we do as humans is just too mundane for an AI.
And too repetitive. It puts too much stress on people.
Yeah, but I think that's also kind of an indictment on the human race at the moment, that we're all sort of kind of, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's protests going on, and we're all in like France and stuff, and they're active to a degree, but like, I mean, we're not active enough. We don't really kind of realise that there's things that are going to happen in the next 10 years that will shift the course of humanity. And I mean, obviously, it won't, well, I don't know, but like nuclear war, I mean, maybe. Well, climate change is the more sort of.
We're seeing now with the emergency alert thing that's coming to the UK, you know, is that really about floods and volcanoes, or is it something else?
I understand why they're doing it, but like, it doesn't really help at the moment, especially with Russia and the whole kind of. I mean, even as a shift, well, not a shift, because China's starting to regress now, and I think they're getting a bit. I don't know what the word is, but like obviously their economy isn't as strong as it once was, like 5 years ago. COVID has really hit them quite badly. And I mean, even if you look at their things in regards to climate change targets and stuff, they're not hitting them, and they're still, obviously there's like 1.4 billion people in China, and there's like, I think in like Shanghai there's like 26 million people, which is like the equivalent of nearly half the UK, which is bonkers for like one city. So obviously they're going to take time and things like this, but like also they're just going to act more erratically to sort of kind of compete with America. I mean, even if you look at the war in Ukraine, it's a bit of a proxy war almost. It's kind of US on one side, China on the other. Even if China aren't outrightly sort of stating their support for Russia, you can kind of tell, because they're all doing all these agreements and sort of, we'll give you this if you give us that. And
did you see Biden's WWE entrance in Ireland.
Yeah, sort of coming up to stage like that.
It's the most bizarre.
He's a weird figure.
It's funny.
He's so old that like I don't know how he's still alive. I'm just like he looks like a walking corpse, and it's concerning for America especially because like you look past him, who is going to become president of that country, and one of them is someone we don't well, you know who, but yeah, it's concerning. But I don't know. It's how do we go from TikTok to Ukraine-Russia war? But anyway, it sort of ties into it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose.
Well, you're seeing now with the whole TikTok trial as well.
Oh yeah, that's.
And there's so many algorithms at play nowadays. There's being filtered all the time. All the advertisements you're seeing, every single post. And with TikTok as well, I guess it comes back to that fear of missing out. It's like, oh, this will be the last one I'll watch. Oh, but what if the next one's really good? And then, oh, but what if that one's really good? And then it just keeps going and going, and then 4 hours later. I find it fascinating seeing screen time. Your phone tracks each day how long you've been on each app. I
Do
find
you
that
do
really
that
interesting.
thing where it tells you you've been on it too long, or like?
Nah,
I've got that on my phone.
yeah.
It sort of tells me it's actually not TikTok weirdly. It's YouTube, but that's because I watch long videos and I'm part of that sort of because I watch podcasts and stuff like that. So in a way, maybe I've got more screen time, but I'm not actually looking at the screen. I'm sort of like just listening. So obviously there's going to be people out there who are just on their phone all the time.
Yeah.
And just that's all they do. That's where they get all their information from. Like even with our generation, like out of 10 people, probably maybe one watches the TV still, or two. Like the only time I really watch the TV is like 6 o'clock news, or I don't know if I sit down with like mum and dad to watch something on a Saturday or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely quite weird how TV. It sort of links back to what we were sort of saying, is becoming sort of exclusively on streaming services. Even like BBC and that, and ITV are really pushing their streaming services now, who are like known to be sort of broadcast television.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody uses the telly to actually watch the telly anymore. They use it to watch YouTube and to stream.
Yeah. All the TVs, like the TV and all, it's just got like a thing attached to it that allows for streaming, and it's just even like things like football. You don't watch it through TV anymore. You watch it through a streamed sort of, I don't know, BT or Sky or I don't know. It's really weird. It's like because we've sort of, like we were talking about, it's like we've sort of grown up with that kind of typical sort of children, I don't know, like approach to life, and I don't know, it's sort of just switched so suddenly in the past few years, and it's.
I think you're talking about watching football and the streams and stuff. I think that's a really interesting debate at the moment, where there's so many subscriptions, there's so many things you need to go
So much money.
and pay for to be able to watch your team play football. And it's crazy, and that's why you're seeing the rise of illegal streaming, rightly or wrongly, but it's because people are being forced into having to do that because it's just too expensive. So I think that the talk of the kind of global Premier League one subscription service and you get all the Premier League games is quite interesting. I can see that doing really well actually.
Even if it was a bit more expensive, people would pay for it because it's just one, and then
because that bit more expensive would outweigh 5-6 different other subscription services.
But then with that, it's just the sort of monopoly of kind of one company having everything, and I don't think that'll ever be the case because the Champions League, and I still think the Champions League and other kind of even the World Cup and things like that will always kind of have their own sort of
that's
service.
fair enough. But I think if the Premier League was to have its own dedicated subscription, where it was just all the Premier League games, I think that would do quite well.
Yeah.
Across it, because otherwise it's what BT, Sky,
Amazon,
and
then you've got all the American ones, CBS. I don't know who else does it in America, but there's a few. So yeah, I think they're all the things we've sort of spoken about, even with football and film and stuff, all intertwined with each other. It's quite interesting. I mean, even with like the news and like there may be a case or scenario in the next few years where the news isn't like not live, but you might not have like a sort of 6 o'clock news where they tell you what's going on because no one is watching the news.
No.
And that's really scary. Also, like people getting their main news source from TikTok, and people will genuinely believe that TikTok is right, and I'm like, no, you take it with a huge pinch of salt. And it's like it may be right in some capacity, but like they could be talking about, I don't know, aliens who decapitated the Egyptians to make the pyramids, and I'm like, okay, where's that come from?
Yeah. But there's so much fake news out there, and there's so many news outlets that you need to take everything, even the stuff that you would consider unbiased or neutral or reliable, you need to even consider is that reliable anymore as well. There's so much content, so much news that has been filtered through.
But also I think that plays into how kind of divided people are. It's like they go into the little sort of camps of like, I believe in this, and then there's like other people that I believe in that, and it's just like, and that's just like, that's not healthy for anybody, and it's just, I think people sort of become so protective over things on social media because that's all they know, and it's like, if someone says something completely different, it just causes someone getting cancelled or someone,
it's like kind of ignorance is bliss as well, or just the refusal to acknowledge the other side of the story as well. People have different opinions from you, and of course there's always going to be right and wrong, and things that are clearly right and wrong, but just even being able to have open conversations with people is so important these days. And we're seeing less and less of that. Even just like YouTube comments or TikTok comments, like the amount of arguments over like silly things. It's bizarre.
I mean, even if you look at it from the perspective of in parliaments, they're not civilized, or like they're always just going for the sound bites. And I think people like Trump and Johnson and all these other sort of populist leaders have really tapped in, to be fair, skillfully, because they've looked at the society that we live in and think, how can I get in power, or how can I solidify my power, or this is how I do it. I just cause not mass disruption, but like they kind of become this popular figure who does stupid shit, and that's what Johnson did here, and he sort of rose to power for being this clumsy looking clown when actually he was actually a clever man who was educated very well, and he knew what he was doing. And when there was like interviews where he was like not being filmed, and he was like speaking really eloquently, and like sort of, he knew what he was doing. And Trump knows what he's doing. All these other sort of populist leaders know what they're doing, and it's, I mean, it's just society.
Yeah.
Don't know.
It's fun times we live in.
I don't know. We're going to a happier note of conversation. I don't know what else has been happening in our lives, and I don't know.
You went to drive?
Oh yeah, I know. That was good. That's a new step in the direction. Dissertation as well. It was, don't advise doing dissertations. Get out while you can.
Got a haircut?
I know, it's all go for me, isn't it?
I've yet to get one. Put
that away. They don't want to see that.
Borderline Beatles haircut.
Would you go out? That's a good thing for like guys. Sorry, ladies. Going out for. Would you go out, or would you like it short? Is that all kind of? Because you have to go through that phase where it's like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've got an event in like mid to late May rather.
March.
A bit late for that. And so if I get a haircut now, I'll do another one before the event. But if they butcher the one just before the event, then it's going to be bad. So I'm like, do I risk it now, or do I just grow it out and then just get one that's like early May, so it gives it time to like grow into a nice bit?
I think you go to a proper barber's for the event in May. Just once, just because, I mean, it'd be nice to look nice for that event, so. Just so you're paying a bit extra, but at least you know the haircut is good every time. That's what I do. I'm like, I have a haircut every like 4 or 5 weeks, 5 weeks to be fair. And I'm like, I know it's going to be good every time, and that's why I pay a bit more for it. And it's just, that's why women's haircuts are so much, because they know it's going to take ages, and like, Like, my mum spends like 4 hours on hairdressers, but like
I think that's ridiculous though. I think
for like a little kid.
yeah, like obviously there's people who love that and they love the chatter, but what about the people who actually just want to get a haircut and then get on with their day? It's like
we're gonna get attacked. But anyway.
no, I think generally there'll be people out there who, you know, they don't want to pay an extortionate amount of money just to go in and get a haircut and then have to sit for 4 hours chatting and gossiping this and that. And it's, for me, I'm in and out in like 10-15 minutes, and then I get on with my day. Whereas I think it's a whole new culture, and it has been for so long now. It's just kind of ingrained as like that's the way it is.
Yeah.
It takes up half the day.
Half an hour is sort of my thing for me, but like that's because we just get chatting and like, you know, that's the way it is. But yeah, I don't know. That's also a weird dynamic that like men's haircuts have become more and more sort of bougie and like alongside women's haircuts now. That's like it's taking longer. You can wash your hair, you can have it dyed, you can have it all different types of fades now. Like me, it's like a taper fade. It's like 10 years ago, people were just like that, short back and side.
I'm not a fan of a fade, to be honest.
This one's alright because it's subtle.
I don't mind that, yeah.
It's
But
subtle.
see ones where like basically the hair starts like halfway up your head.
Yeah.
No, like I want my hair to be able to see that I have hair here.
Yeah, the reason I do this one is because it's got the sideburns that get trimmed in there, but then
I don't mind that
it's
so much.
still kind of got length there. So, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so like skin fade is like nothing here, and then especially when it's done badly and you can see the stages.
that's why you have to, if you're getting a skin fade, you have to go to a good barber if you can, because you see all those crazy haircuts on TikTok and that where like the fade is starting up there and there's hair down there and you're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Is this guy drunk doing it? Yeah. Haircuts 101, honestly. We have a haircut podcast.
Yep, we get some people on.
Get the barbers on. Yeah, I don't know. Also, like, finishing uni as well. It's going well.
Big step.
Big step soon. Yeah. I know. Adults don't like it, but yeah. I suppose we're filming this. This is the part of the podcast where anybody who doesn't like football can switch off. Man United, and obviously we can talk about quite a bit for 15-20 minutes. And how are you feeling about Man United in general, just as a season as a whole? Is it better than last season? This is our yearly sort of rant about United, so you can watch us get angry.
Yeah, it is better.
Better?
I think at the start of the season, if you had said where we are now, I would have taken it. But I think then it's like, having seen that journey, there's a lot of disappointments where I think in hindsight we could have done a lot better with things. You know, getting beat by 4-0 by Brentford, 7 by Liverpool,
6 by City.
Yeah.
And then last night,
going to Europa League was just shocking.
They're all away. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like Ten Hag's been amazing, but we've had so many L's.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And part of it is because he's only got one starting 11, and anything other than that is rotten.
Yeah, as soon as you go past that starting 11, it's just
It doesn't work.
Off.
It falls apart.
Yeah, even in that starting 11, there are weak points, like the goalkeeper, who just been a great servant. Loved him, but like it's just time to go. And he'll get a team somewhere else, Italy, Spain. He's a good goalkeeper, but he's just not what we need anymore because of his style of play. Because if Ten Hag keeps him on, he's just signing his own death wish. He may as well sign his P42. He's not going to win anything with him. He's done it. He's done it in every. He did it in the semi-final with the Europa League. He did it in the final when we watched it. He was lucky in the League Cup because Newcastle was so sort of. They didn't really shoot, but like.
I expected more from them actually in that game. They didn't really turn up, which was a shame for them.
Nerves.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think United, they know what they need to do, and if they get new ownership, I think it's clear who needs bought and they need squad depth.
The problem is with this new ownership, it's not going to come in time for summer. I think it'll be January, if it does come, where we actually start to see proper signings come in.
I think they'll be able to, if the sale happens at the end of the month that they're saying, they'll be able to sign players in like August, but that's still like the back end
It's
of
tight.
the transfer
Yeah.
window, so they'll have to say to players.
And the problem is, in between that, there's a lot of players who should go,
Yeah, but
and,
just
and,
won't.
and what if they do or not? But if they do go, then we're kind of stuck because then we really don't have a team.
And we just have to play youth players as the
Yeah.
bench. Yeah, it's a concern. But also, I read a thing that is like, even if the new ones can't buy in like June and that, they'll still technically buy, but they'll just loan money, but then just pay off the loan. Because I mean, if it is, unfortunately, if it is the Qataris, then they'll just have so much money they can just burn it and be like, yeah, don't care. But it's an issue with owners like that, especially in terms of human rights. It's just that you've got Saudi, Newcastle, is it Abu Dhabi with City, and then you have Qataris and United. It's just like,
Yeah.
and then Liverpool might get bought off another Middle Eastern team as well in the future. I'm just like, it's just the rich
It's a
boys
lot of
in,
money,
in the Middle East. Just,
I wonder how much of it is sports washing as well.
yeah,
You've seen it in F1 with all the kind of Middle Eastern countries. Yeah, I wonder how much of it is sports washing.
probably got a lot. Yeah, also just to keep their books clean.
Yeah.
Because they've got so much money, and it's just, I know the Qatari owner who's coming in, he isn't directly linked to the Qatari government and stuff like that, but still, it's just anybody who is Qatari and is just linked with this country that's got all those human rights abuses and all those stories from the World Cup, and like all those illegal workers just dying, and
Yeah.
it's very difficult. But I mean, even like pundits and that have said, like Gary Neville, is like, what can you actually do to stop them buying a club? Because British but billionaires can't compete. Americans can compete, but they're just going to do what Bowley's doing or Glazers have done, just loan out loads of money and then just spend. And it's,
We need a couple of really enthusiastic Hollywood actors to come in.
oh yeah, it's funny you say that. Wrexham and Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, I like that. I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean, looks like they might go up.
I think
So
they're
they're
one
doing
win,
well.
1 win away.
Yeah.
So, I know, that's good. Yeah.
Fair play. But the other teams in that league must be fuming.
Oh, yeah, it's just-
Like why Wrexham?
Wrexham, all their players on like League One money, like, so that's third tier money for English football. So that's a lot of money. That's like 5-6 grand a week in League One. So and National League, sorry.
Yeah.
So it was unfair from the start, but it's going to be more of that. There's going to be more millionaires and billionaires just come in and buy a club. Even up here, it'll start to sort of happen slowly. There was already talk of like a billionaire in America try to buy Celtic, but like Celtic only saying no, or like you can only have a minority stake.
If they bring in good money, I'll take it. Try and compete in Europe.
That's what I said. I was like, if who's the main owner still? Who owns like 60%? I've forgotten his name. Celtic.
What, Lowell?
Yeah, I think he
Or
owns
Desmond?
I think he owns the most
Yeah.
of Celtic. But if they gave away like 25% to like a billionaire, then that's amazing. It'll help as well, because that means also these American owners in Scotland will be able to say, oh, televise it on American TV, and then it'll just grow the audience a bit. Now there's a big audience across the world for Celtic and Rangers. It's just you need to improve the rest of the league and improve the stadiums as well, and it will take a bit of money, but is the SFA willing to take that hit? Probably not, but they should.
It's the problem with the Scottish League. It is just Celtic, Rangers,
Then no one.
then no one. There's no competition, and then there's no. Yeah, it's hard for the other teams to catch up.
Yeah, it's a shame, because there are good players within these teams, but they all just go to the Championship down south or abroad.
You're seeing it with a lot of Celtic youth players as well.
They just go.
And they're getting younger. They're going at 16, 17 years old. So they're not even getting it to even get a chance in the first team.
Because they're probably earning more money as a youth player
Absolutely.
down
And
there.
they
do
can
up here.
guarantee some football. With the likes of like Burnley, these sort of clubs.
Even if they go to like, I don't know, Man City, and they end up playing for Southampton or something, that's still a win for them. They're earning 30 grand a week, and it's life-changing money, whereas up here they might never ever get to play, and then they'll end up in League One in Scotland where it's crap and you're still working another job. So I don't blame them. It's a shame, obviously, with players like Ben Doak and that go, but like, do you blame them? No, I would do the same thing if the game calling.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the investment of Scottish football will happen because of two things really: the Scottish national team doing better, and because of Celtic and Rangers level going up. Because Celtic and Rangers must just look at the rest of the league and think they need to improve. How do we help them? We need to do something, because it's just not fun for us, because we need our level to improve if we're improving in the Champions League. Because it's
I see nothing actually. If Celtic and Rangers both get into group stage Champions League football next season, Rangers will be higher in the coefficient
really.
than Celtic.
I mean, it makes sense because
Yeah.
their European record's way better than Celtic's in the past
Yeah, that's the thing I think
10
now
years.
for Celtic and for Ange is that European push. There needs to be. I don't think we're Champions League quality. I don't, but I think Europa League definitely.
See if they finished a strong third, beat two teams in the Champions League and played well and didn't ship loads of goals, fine. And then they go in the Europa League and then they get to like the quarters or the semis. Quarters or semis, there's luck around when it gets to that, but that's fine. And as long as they compete, that's okay. But it's just the way they drop off in European games where they get beat like 4-5-0, it's just embarrassing and it's not good enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's the players as well. It's a problem. It's just like, how can you buy players at that quality? You need to mould them, and then by the time you mould them, they're off down in the Premier League because they've been bought. There's already like 5 links to O'Reilly, Hatate, Jota, Carver. Because if we lose all of them to the English league, we might not even finish first in their own league.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Definitely.
Champions League.
We're falling into that kind of feeder club mentality, and it's a fine line to kind of get it right, because you don't want to be a feeder club for these other big clubs, but we also kind of need to be in a way to keep afloat and to kind of keep the money going. I just want Ange has been fantastic with his signings, and it's just whether or not that will continue. You know, there has been a few duds along the way, but
it's always duds. It's happens,
yeah,
isn't it?
it's just about, I guess, trying to maintain that consistency of how many Kyogos can you bring in, how many Hatates can you bring in, like how Maeda, Jota, like all these class players, how many
can you bring in?
Consistently bring in, and they're always going to hit the ground running.
I think there's been 2 duds, Ideguchi and
McCarthy.
McCarthy, but that wasn't really his. McCarthy wasn't his signing. And Scales seemed a bit of a money laundering thing for an Irish club to Celtic. I was a bit weirded out by that. Scales was good for the Irish league, but I was like, come on.
Yeah, it was a strange one.
It was a weird one, but anyway.
Yeah, so there's been a few that haven't worked out. It happens.
I like the new boys, Owata and Kobayashi. I think they're good players. I think they'll do well. Especially Kobayashi, if Carter Vickers is injured now, he'll have to play.
Yeah.
I would rather Carter Vickers just get surgery and just comes back for next season. Because that means teams down south will start watching him and may be able to keep him for another season.
Yeah.
So, and then gives Kobayashi a chance.
And stays to have another crack at European football, and then depending on how that goes, I think he'll be off.
I think if they do well in Europe, he'll stay. But I think if they don't, he's just gone. And I think he will go to a team like Brighton or something like that. I think Brighton, if De Zerbi will stay for a season or 2, but I would not be surprised if Ange goes to them because it's a good club.
Yep.
And they're well oiled, and they're a bit like Celtic, they pick players out quite shrewdly. And yeah, I mean, even if he went to Brighton, then Ange could end up at like Liverpool or something. It'd be quite, because Klopp will stay for a bit, so in time for that it could be. And also, he's done so much for us. Obviously, I wouldn't want him to leave mid-season, but if he did leave, I'd be like, I like him that much. It's kind of like, there you go.
Depends how he goes about it. If he's clear, which I think he will be, I think he'll be honest and just say.
He has been since the start.
Then fair enough, you can't blame him. But if it's like, nah, I'll stay, and then he's off.
Like Rodgers.
Yeah.
Well,
no, he's a bad taste.
Unemployed now anyway. So. But yeah, I don't know. Scottish football, Ange is going in the right direction. The points that tally's insane. I mean, like plus 70 goal difference. It's bonkers. It's bonkers, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like with Scottish football as well, I think there's that avenue they could migrate into the English leagues as well. It's always an opportunity.
I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think it'll happen, but I think
if it does, the Scottish league is done. I think it's going to be.
Yeah,
it might as well be a championship.
I think they all should just migrate in and just become, I don't know, Hibs in the championship and all that. And don't know, and an Athletic in the National League. I mean, it might happen. I mean, it might get to a point where Celtic and Rangers are just like, well, we're being offered money over there.
Yeah.
Champions League, I don't know, they might get it via some sort of rule or something, I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. Interesting times, football especially. Spoke about quite a lot,
Yeah.
From
Covered a fair bit.
Ukrainian war to football to, to TikTok.
There you go. I get it all.
Yeah, so I think we'll be back soon, hopefully again with Kevin. I don't know, whenever we can. It might be online, it might not be, who knows. Make sure to check out, I hate doing all this, YouTube, TikTok.
Yeah. Subscribe.
Yeah, it will be down below. And I'm sure we'll clip this podcast up and it'll be on TikTok anyway. So all the people that don't want to sit for 2 hours can go over there and watch that. Just skip to this bit and we'll say skip to this so you can watch TikTok.
Yep.
But, peace.
See ya.